I've been seeing a recent trend of philosophy making a comeback. There's a certain undercurrent of people thinking that the thinkers of the past had it right all along, especially since it feels like today's world is headed towards an inevitable apocalypse. Chief amongst these philosophers and ancient teachings is one brand of philosophy that's universally taken over the culture: Broicism. Now, a few years ago, when I was lost and confused, I was fooled by the lie that Broicism is somehow the cure all answer to all my problems. You want more money? Put your head down and work your face off. You want more attraction from women? Hit your face with a hammer and get rich, and women will just flock to you. Have pent up emotions you want to release? Emotions are for the weak, inferior losers. Get rid of them and get back on the grind. It's when content creators who have the attention span of a crack addicted goldfish get on these platforms and try to tell you about the ancient teachings of Marcus Aurelius just to parlay that into whatever they're selling you. Now, I think people should be able to sell whatever they want on their platforms, but I do have a problem with people condensing the insights of emperors that took a lifetime to glean into a 30-second TikTok and shipping it to teenagers and kids. Why is it so popular now? I think one of the main reasons why this kind of content has gotten so popular amongst young men especially is because masculinity is facing what I like to call an intense reevaluation. Over the last decade, a lot of young men have grown up hearing masculinity discussed in its worst extremes. This toxic masculinity surfaces in instances of abuse, entitlement, aggression, and much more. And yes, while toxic masculinity definitely does exist and those specific people should be held accountable for their actions, it also casts a looming specter over just normal guys. People without power and influence who get thrown in the same basket as extremists whenever society condemns men as a whole. And since toxic masculinity has become universally used as a disapproval mechanism, it's understandable that men everywhere have a hard time knowing how to conduct themselves without being labeled as one of them. And I think Broicism offers them an alternative. Turn inward, react to nothing, and ruthlessly self-invest so you can enjoy the fruits of your own labor and live the quote-unquote good life. I too was seduced by this notion that ruthless self-investment was the answer to all of my prayers. Just become the archetypical alpha and I would have everything I wanted. I dreaded asking for help because I didn't want to come off incompetent. I never opened up because I've dealt with the trauma of my own mother throwing it back in my faces during exchanges. I started treating every uncomfortable emotion like it was a bug. I never stopped to understand why I felt like this, only that I had to stop feeling bad and start feeling good immediately. And here's the thing, guys. It actually works for a time. The powerful thing about Broicism is that it doesn't fail immediately. If it did, no one would follow it and the movement would be just dead on arrival. But since you narrow your life down to only a few things, you naturally start seeing rapid progress in those areas. It's like one-tricking a character in a video game. You get really good feedback quickly and often, so you naturally keep going down that path. It's only after a while that you realize that you've isolated yourself from the full experience. By denying myself connection, emotion, and grace over the past few years, I was able to rapidly accelerate some aspects of my life like fitness, productivity, and even seduction. The grind paid off and my life was in a much better place than I first started. I was making more money, was even better looking, and my general aloofness made me paradoxically better at attracting women. So then, what was the problem? The problem was that I had all of this success and I was completely and utterly empty and lonely. And this, dear viewer, is the price of following this flawed philosophy. It causes you to over-index in results to the point where you sacrifice critical relationships that make the results worth achieving. You have all these powerful mindsets and sexy habits, but you end up as a lifeless robot going about its perfectly optimized schedule. It's basically like dying while still alive. I'd wager that there's almost no content creator who does Broicism content that has actually sat down and analyzed the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, because it was never about those teachings in the first place. See guys, stoicism has been repurposed as a powerful marketing tool to attract impressionable lost men into cult-like social groups. It gives you an identity to wear like a piece of clothing, and for a lot of people that feel lost and apprehensive, it might as well be a lifeline. Whereas the world seems to reject you and your masculinity, Broicism tells you to not listen to the world and retreat inward instead. It copies the aesthetic, statues, and quotes, but throws away the quiet moral burden that real stoicism was founded upon. Here are some of the tactics that are used to twist real stoicism into this fake Broicism in order to mass market it to the world. Number 1. Selling emotional numbness as masculinity. Young men are told that being hurt, lonely, scared, confused, or emotional is weakness. They're given this hyper-masculine standard to not just aspire to, but maintain, which leads to more depression, more avoidance, and ultimately more loneliness. Real Stoicism was about stopping and questioning signals that your subconscious is trying to communicate through your emotions, and whether choosing to listen to your emotion is the correct call in whatever scenario you're in. It was teaching you to be more mindful and deliberate with the use of emotions as tools for your life, and not just throwing them out altogether because they're just too feminine or weak. Number 2. When wealth and status get framed as proof of virtue. This one is particularly bad because it's a heinous perversion of actual Stoic values. Broicism sells the exact same thing that Stoicism was trying to free you from, being ruled by externals. Ancient Stoics would have found it insane that external rewards are being used as evidence of inner value. A lot of content creators use ancient and profound philosophy to advertise their vapid, edgy lifestyles because it creates the most powerful effect on the most amount of people. Try telling a 17-year-old kid that becoming a strong man is about virtue, reason, courage, wisdom, and duty, and try telling another 17-year-old kid that being a strong man is all about money, women, muscles, and status. One of these is a lot sexier and flashier than the other, and so the algorithm rewards it. Real Stoicism is about having integrity and doing the right thing even when no one is looking. Number 3. Performance instead of practice. Listen, if your Stoicism needs a ring light and a rental Lambo, then it's just insecurity wrapped in a toga. Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations as a private self-correction. He didn't write it so he can show off to the world how much better he is than everyone else and why everyone should buy his stuff. Rather, it's a quiet and deep struggle with oneself to understand what ultimately decides a life that's worth living. On the other hand, Broicism is a perpetual cycle of performance. Discipline that relies on public approval is no different from a clown relying on the crowd's laughter. And finally, number 4. Isolation disguised as independence. Stoics were pretty adamant that humans were social beings and that it's these obligations to others, like unity, justice, and public participation, that elevated one's standard of living. Again, the lone wolf mantra is much edgier and much more likely to sell to a younger, lost crowd. But like I shared in my own experience, it's isolating and empty even in the best case scenario. The insidious part of this messaging relies on isolating these people from their support network. These influencers are able to effectively trap them in a limited worldview so their followers grow dependent on them for guidance and validation. Just like me, the young men that follow this path find it increasingly difficult to get rid of because going on this path means cutting off everyone else and pledging allegiance to the cult. In conclusion, guys, the modern take on Stoicism is basically an edgy version of masculinity for impressionable men, which is a direct response to the prevalence of toxic masculinity in today's society. Because the current world can reject masculinity so openly these days, men feel empowered by a false philosophy that rejects the world back. It's much better if we're allowed to express ourselves in healthy outlets instead of dressing up suppression and avoidance as sexy ideals to aspire towards. Instead of framing emotional pain or confusion about the future as powerful superiority, we should feel and understand our emotion and ask where they come from. Because just like rational thought, emotions are also extremely powerful. But unlike rational thought, they have different use cases and quote-unquote rules for interaction. I wish I could go back 5 years and tell 22-year-old Diamond that becoming a quote-unquote real man is first and foremost about being honest and secure in your successes just as much as your shortcomings. It's learning to lean into the discomfort of trauma and emotion to try to sit with them and try to understand them. A lesser man tries to pretend his pain doesn't exist. A better man accepts his pain so he's no longer enslaved to it. One path is avoidance, the other is courage. You can't just run away from your pain and call it a tactical retreat, because this is what most of these influencers are doing and it shows. Thanks for watching, guys. If this resonates with you, like the video so it reaches another guy who's numbing his pain and calling it alpha. Subscribe for more insight and eventually gaming reviews, and join my Discord for chill gaming nights. If you're a young person trying to make sense of this chaotic world we live in today, I made another video detailing everything I would do differently if I woke up as a 20-year-old tomorrow. Give it a watch and tell me what you guys think. That's it from me in this video, guys. Take care of yourselves and I'll see you next week.